Daf. Basis sounds right. We got up to the top.
Yes, I do.
We are Roshim Lakish Aktamun, the second line from the top. Roshim Lakish Aktamun Lechad Sav Libura Shimon Lakish. A certain old man came before him, preceded him into the Ibur, to the conference about making a leap year. Valune minautar de lahal, or I probably have a letter erased. Should be de lalon. As you also have the same letter erased. They kicked him out of the other gate. I mean, this old man, he wasn't a Talmid Chacham, he was just an old man, so they kicked him out. Amar Keni Ebescharam. So Reish Lakish said, serve him right. That should be his reward. Why? Because he was not suitable to come and participate in deliberations on Yerushalmi Rosh HaShanah. He was not moritz, or not learned. So it says the Gemara, what? So what? The Veloshmi Adamar Rabbi Crispa B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan. Didn't Reish Lakish hold here that which Rabbi Crispa said, named Rabbi Yochanan, Ma'aseh she'ibru Hashana Shlosha Roi Bakar, the time when three shepherds, three cowboys served as the basin for making a leap year. Chaminon Omar, one of them said, Bachir v'Lakish. Now it says Bachir Lakish, but it should be v'Lakish. Bachir v'Lakish ba'adar meinatz. Oh, the only time it's Adar, meaning that spring is here, is if both the barley, which is planted early, that's Bachir, planted earlier, and Lakish, the wheat, which is planted late, that's called Lakish. If they both are budding in Adar, in other words, they're growing significant growth, then it's Adar. Otherwise, if it's too early in the year, it really should be Shvat, and you have to make it a leap year. Okay, that's one siman, right? The other one said, Kadum ba'adar, if when the east wind, which is the cold wind, at least I guess in Eretz Yisrael, the east wind blows in Adar, puch lechich, you blow, you exhale from your mouth, upik lekabei, and it can turn back the east wind, that means it's Adar. In other words, if the east wind strength, the cold wind strength is so diminished that you can actually exhale and overcome the east wind, so then that's Adar, meaning it's already time to make spring. Otherwise, it should still be Shvat, and therefore you have to add a month. Finally, the third sign is V'choran Tor ba'adar be'drei, a ox in Adar in your herd. If in the morning, though it doesn't say morning here, if in the morning Yamus, it will die from cold. Uvital tunsa, and in the afternoon, although it doesn't say afternoon here, it was going to seek the shade of the fig tree, and mashchi shalach, and scratch its skin off because it's so hot. So then it's Adar. In other words, if in the morning it's very cold and in the afternoon it's very hot, then it's already springtime. Of course, in Eretz Yisrael, in Chicago, you don't have the spring until July. But then you can make, then you don't have to make a leap year, but otherwise you make a leap year. So since all these simonim were not fulfilled, that Adar, Ribus Hashon Al Piyam, they made a leap year based on their say-so. So you see that even three shepherds can make a leap year. Says Gemara, no, can't work that way. Rabbi Chelba said, Viskimu based in Imoin. Has to be that based in agrees. In other words, you can use these signs, these popular signs of what makes Adar, but these are not the people who can decide it. They can just be, it's popular wisdom or folk wisdom in order to be the catalyst for basin.
They didn't have groundhogs, so they would have.
Right, they didn't use groundhogs, right. So, it says, locate him, Rabbi Zira. Did you see ESPN last night? Okay, they interviewed this frum guy, and they interviewed Rabbi Schumann about him. Tamir Goodman, the frum bastard. Yeah, they interviewed Rabbi Schumann because Rabbi Schumann is a TA alumnus, or not a TA alumnus, TA Elementary School. He's from Baltimore, whatever. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, that's the first time a Skokie guy made it big on television. Okay. So, says the Gemara, I only bring up this tumah because I know it interests the population here. Chas v'sholom, people hearing this on tape shouldn't think that we actually, I condone this kind of behavior. Okay, says the Gemara further. Wait a minute. Located Rabbi Zira v'hein sheyu mor kula mori mitam echad. Don't we know that when you want to decide to make a leap year, everybody has to give the same reason, and these three shepherds are giving three different reasons. They have to agree to the same reason. So says Mar, no, Mikay, that's not 100% true. Mikay, the Ilan, Moidin, Le'elin, Ve'elin, Mudin, Le'elin. Since everybody agrees with the other guy's reason, that's sufficient. Kamosh Kulam, Morim, Mitam, Echad, as if they're all giving the same reason. So since this all this folk wisdom, they all agreed about it, so that's sufficient. Now, says Mar, we have a Midas question, B'Shem Lakish. B'Shem Lakish, Mikra, the Milsa, B'Shem Lakish is upset that they took the old man in and not him. Doesn't pass. B'Shem Lakish should be upset. Where is his Midas Tovos, right? Why is he getting upset that the old man was taken in? So it's interesting, the Gemara's answer. Choshesh l'hidam Rabbi Lezer. He was afraid that what Rabbi Lezer says. Rabbi Lezer, v'hoiso yadiel neviim, my hand will smite those prophets. Hachozim shav, who prophesy lies. Vakosmin kazav, and those who make magic in also a false way. So how am I going to punish them? They're not going to be in the secret of my nation. Zesora Ibur. They won't participate in the secrets of making a leap year. And in the writings of Bnei Yisrael, they will not be written. Zeminui. That's a gathering to make a leap month. The land of Israel, they will not come. So Eretz Yisrael, that's Eretz Yisrael. So it's interesting, there are three klolos mentioned there. Not to be involved in making leap years, not to be involved in Kiddush HaChodesh, and not to be in Eretz Yisrael. So Rish Lakish was afraid he didn't want to be subject to one of these klolos. So that's why he's actively interested, since he was suitable to be there, at being in the conference which would decide the Ibur Shana. But he's upset, that this old man was invited, and he wasn't invited because he felt it was a fulfillment of that klola against him, and he wanted to avoid that. Rabbi Lezer says along these lines, when I came to Israel, Amrit, I said, I got away from one curse, meaning I made it to the Holy Land. When I was appointed to serve on the basis for Kiddush HaChodesh, Amrit, I said, I got out of the second klola. When I got to serve on a basin for Ibur Shana, Amrit, I said, Gevaldik. I got out of all three. Right now, I'm completely out of this pasuk and these kolos. Rabbi Ba Bar Tzadok said. Now, this is going back to the Gemara, to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that, of course, you only say Mekudesh on the 30th day, which would be after 29th day month, not on the 31st day, which is after the 30th day month. Rabbi Ba Bar Tzadok Rav said, time to Rabbi Lezer. The reason Rabbi Lezer ben Tzadok, who said that this is the halacha, is since in the 30-day month, came to Beis Shamal and Roin, She'ein Beis Shalmatan Mekachim also. So the next day, since the Beis Shamal sees that the Beis Shalmat is not doing it, month, Hey Makdishin also, so the Beis Shamal already does it. The Losh of the Bible is for Kitshu Shamayim, which really is a simple, a grand way of saying that there's no 31-day month. So therefore, the 31st day is Mimela Rosh Chodesh, based in Shamata, doesn't have to be Makadish in that case. Okay? Musur Savana Hayilol Rabban Gamliel Bal Yaso Betavla Uvakoso, a tablet, and on the wall also. Gamliel had the images of moons engraved or colored. Shabayan Mara said Yotos. That's what used to show the common folk used to come and serve as witnesses about Kiddush HaChodesh. Why made it say then? Kozera used to see like this, or Kozera used to see like this. Meister Shabo Shnayim, there was once an episode where two came from and they said, Renew Shachris b'Mizrach, Varvis b'Marav. We saw it in the morning in the east and at night in the west. Now this is very difficult. That means they saw the
They saw the last sliver of the old moon.
right in the east,
New sliver of the new moon.
in the west, which is very, very problematic actually. Now that I realize it, because l'chayra if you see in the morning in the east, you're seeing as the sun rises. I guess it catches the rays, even though it's a very, you know what I think? I made a mistake. I made a mistake what I was thinking this morning. Now I'm not going to lead you astray. Just to let you know what I think it is. In other words, when the sun is rising, even though the moon is a very small sliver, it might catch some of the rays of the sun, right? Because it's right there. If the sun has to shine all the way across the sky to hit a sliver of the moon, it's not going to happen. But if it's right next to it, so it can still catch the last sliver. And at night, when the sun is setting, if the first sliver of the new moon can appear, so it'll catch it on that side, okay, at the horizon. Okay, so now generally this is very unlikely, because actually you have to figure. I mean, astronomically speaking, that means that the molad was at noon, more or less, right? And that means that they're seeing in the morning, they're still seeing the old sun, just 6 hours before total ground zero, when there is the old moon total 6 hours before total ground zero, and they're seeing the new moon 6 hours after total ground zero. That's a pretty neat trick. The Rambam says, generally speaking, for you can't see the moon for 24 to 48 hours, because it means that I'm trying to describe how unlikely this is, because it means also, bear in mind the way the Earth is constantly rotating, right? So it means that somehow, generally speaking, you're not going to be able to see. Even let's say the new moon is visible 6 hours after the Moilad, but you have to be towards nighttime at that point, right? If 6 hours after Moilad you're facing broad daylight, there's no way you're going to see the moon, because the sun is too overpowering, right? So therefore, it has to be that you saw mamish the last sliver at dawn, and you see mamish the glimmering at dusk, and that's happening configured in a way that there's no other way in which can work. I don't know if I'm making clear how unlikely
within
it
a
is.
24-hour period.
Yeah.
It is no way that you can see both slivers from the old and the new moon.
But that's what happened here.
Yeah, that's
what
what
happened.
you're saying. It's
Right, it's extremely unlikely.
within a 24-hour.
Then the only way it could happen is if you saw the last sliver at, if you were, because generally speaking, the only way, if let's say the last sliver 6 hours before the molad was 5 minutes later, it would be impossible for you to see, because by that time the sun would already be up. You wouldn't be seeing anything, right? You might see, you might see the new moon, but you couldn't see the old moon. If it happened 5 minutes earlier, you might see the old moon, but then you wouldn't see the new moon, because the sun would be too far beneath the horizon to illuminate that sliver, right? So therefore it has to be exactly perfect. That one is at dusk and one is at dawn, and one is at dawn, one is at dusk, and it has to be, of course, that you have very good vision in order to see it. I'm obviously not articulating it sufficiently, but you get the idea, I think, right? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, forget it. Rabbi Yochanan said, Eida Sheker, they're liars. You can't see both on the same day. Even though we had a blot ago, we actually had that there's a certain town, I forget his name, Mora. Rabbi Avun saw the new moon, saw the old moon in the morning. He threw clumps of dirt and said, "Go away. We want to see the new moon tonight." And the moon went away and came back that night. So I don't think it was an ace. I think it was a similar idea to our Mishnah. But maybe after our Mishnah, after our Gabriel Paskins, not Rabbi Yochanan, maybe Rabbi Avun also did that. So again, Rabbi Yochanan says, Eida Sheker, and they're liars. When they came to Yavne, in front of the court, Kilon and Gamliel accepted them. Volbo Stein V'Amr, there are another two came V'Amr, they said, Re'inu B'Zmano, we saw it at night of the first of Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, Uvalayla, V'Re'inu B'Zmano V'Layla, B'Ibura, Uvalayla B'Ibura, and the next month, the next night, Lo Nir, we didn't see it anymore, right? That we only saw it, it disappeared. So the Kiblon, and he accepted that Kiblon going to accept it because they figured maybe the second month was the second night was cloudy, or for some other reason he didn't see it. There must be liars. How can they say a woman gave birth? The next night she's pregnant again. I mean, because if the moon disappeared, obviously they missed it. So Rabbi Shua liked Rabbi Dusam and Urkanus' argument against Gamliel, and he felt that Gamliel made a mistake. Rabbi Sila said, Talmud Rabbi Yochanan, large Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Chodesh Nolad Kodem L'Shei Shos, any moilad before noon, right? If the moilad is before noon, before 6 hours a day, ain't koch b'ayin l'Rosh HaShanah, you can't see the old moon. You can't see the old moon already because the old moon was 6 hours previously, and this was not in close enough proximity to the sun for you to be able to see it, because it would have to be very close proximity to the sun to illuminate at least a sliver, and it wouldn't happen because it was not as the sun was rising. It was already in the period when the moon disappeared, because it's impossible to see it during those 6 hours before and after the molad. So Vitani came and learned Yoshon b'shachris lo nira. Chodesh ben arbaim nira. If you can't see the old moon in the morning, then you can see the new one in the afternoon. But Chodesh ben arbaim nira, if you can't see the new in the afternoon, the Yoshon b'shachris then you could see the old moon in the morning. So Rabbi Chirba said, Lo Mekilan Gamliel. What did Gamliel accept him? She came Mesoris b'yada b'avosav. He has a Mesorah from his fathers. Pami malch b'ksar pami malch l'rucha. Sometimes the moon comes on the shortcut. Sometimes there's a long cut. So obviously it doesn't mean that. Right? The moon is constant, right? 29 days, 12 hours, 793 chalokim. Kati avtash tzag. It's a constant. It doesn't go quicker or slower. But rather, I think he means, like I said before, it's very remotely possible. But it's possible that if the molad is at exact dusk, exact high noon, the molad is exact high noon, then they can see it ot as the sun is rising in the morning, and ot as the sun is setting in the evening. That's what he meant to say. Okay? So Shalchar ben Gamliel, Gamliel sent a message to one of them. We don't know who, whether it was Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Goes Rani Olech, just want to correct the mistake I made here. Okay, so Shalchar Gamliel goes Rani Olech, he made a decree, very famous Gemara. Shetava etzliba ma'kelcha mosecha. You must come to me with your staff and with your coins. B'yom shechal yom kippur on the day which comes to be Yom Kippur according to your reckoning. The Gemara's going to ask. Is it Rabbi Yochanan or Rabbi Yeshua? The Gemara's going to ask. We always assume it's Rabbi Yeshua, but it's not clear. Because both, there were two Tanoim arguing him on two separate occasions. Holach umatza Rabbi Akiva Meitzer. So Rabbi Akiva went and found him in anguish. So he says, Rabbi Akiva tried to console him. He said, I can teach you Shekomash Osar on Gamliel also. Everything Rabbi Gamliel done is effective. Shemar says, these are the Moadim of Hashem, the holy days which you should call them. Ben Bismanam, Ben Shlobismanam, whether at the proper time, improper time, so it's even Sneja makes a mistake. Ainly more the Saleh than all the time about these. Eitzel Mi Sholach, who did he send the message to? Was it Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri or Rabbi Yeshua? Because they both argue at different times. Meanwhile, the tiny Rabbi Yeshua, for that which Rabbi Yeshua said, Noach hayoli mutal amito, would have been better to me to be sick in bed. Not to send me this message. Adamras teaches us it's Rabbi Yeshua Shilach that he sent this message to Rabbi Yeshua. Beyond me Shilach, who was the messenger? Since we have in the Brisa that the response Rabbi Yeshua gave was to him, Nichamtani Akiva, you console me. Hadam Rabbi Akiva Shleach Masi Rabbi Akiva was the messenger. What did Rabbi Akiva teach him? Rabbi Yosef, he said this way, he taught them, we know even if you consecrated the Kiddush HaChodesh without witnesses at all, it's Mekudosh. Now, of course, it's not true, you need witnesses, but what happens if you have witnesses, as the Gemara is about to say? Meaning, if somebody comes to testify, Shim Kidshu and they're Mekadosh them. Or do you have Eidim Zoimim, Kiddush HaChodesh, right? The witnesses come and say, we saw the new moon in New York. And then they come and say, Mono Yisem in Chicago. So then the Eidim Zaymim, right? But we make Kiddush HaChodesh in the meantime, based on the first witnesses. Is the Kodesh Mekudesh? Is the Kodesh Mekudesh? Yes, it is. Even though there, in effect, were no witnesses. By the way, I've told you, I think, in the past, that the Muslims still Mekadesh Al Pi Riyah today. You know that, right?
No, what?
The Muslims are still Mekadesh Al Pi Riyah. Yeah, there was a report on NPR a few years ago, which I heard, that they're not so frum, the Muslims, as you know. They accept Eidus over the telephone. So actually, there are a few Muslims every month who go up to the top of the Sears Tower have the schus of being the first ones to see the Moilad in the world, and telephone. I think it's Riyadh, or Mecca or Medina, one of these places in Saudi Arabia, to paskin that on the Kiddush HaChodesh. It's an amazing concept. They actually are still Mekadesh Al Pi Riyah, and it seems that the base in Saudi Arabia, even though they're whatever type of Muslims there are, I forget what type there are in Saudi Arabia. They have their own type. They're not Sunni or Shiite. They have their own religion. Yeah, they have their own sect. Some of the sect extremely rigorous sect. I forget what they're called. But even though it's the various different sects, they all accept the psak of the Beis Din in Mecca. So, Musar Haska for us Jews, right?
Well, this shows anyway that Kiddush HaChodesh does not need Eidus.
That's what you say. But you know what? But it needs fake Eidus. It needs Eidus to start the process. It's like Reb Shimon Shkop writes in Shar Yesh. He says that Eidim fulfill two functions. I don't think it brings up the Kodesh, but I was just wanted to say Makos here. The Eidim fulfill two functions. One is they clarify the shiur. The other is they activate Beis Din. Beis Din can't do anything without Eidus, right? Beis Din without Eidus is like a flashlight without battery. He doesn't use that much. So it's like a flashlight without battery, right? So the same thing here. The Beis Din actually needs Eidim to come. Even the proof to be Eidus Sheker. We need Eidim to come, then Beis Din. Okay, so here, see, it's because I mentioned ESPN before I got punished. All right, so but that was recorded. I saw it, illuminated. So anyway, so that's what happens here. Vatninon. Now, the Gemara, the Gemara. This is not a question. The Gemara says, and a riot this, Rabbi Kiva Shita Zatim Ma'aseh Shavi Yosef Me'arbaim Zug V'ikon Rabbi Kiva Blut 40. We had this. The 40 sets of witnesses passed, or in Gamli, Rabbi Akiva kept them from going in Lud, right? They were going to Yerushalmi on Shabbos, so he didn't want to do the Chal Shabbos. Kept 39 behind. Only one he sent, right? So Aidesha Arbaim Zug. It's because there were 40. If there was only one, he would have sent along. And in fact, I assume he sent one of those 40 along. Why only for one? Let's be chayshit. They'll find to be apostle, right? They'll find to be apostle or zoymim or something. Rabbi Kiva Shitaso. And if you find them psulim, big deal. Lamaisi ad edim, right? So that's enough. So atem afilu mutim. He made a mistake as long as he had one set of witnesses, even if later on they proved to be false witnesses. So that's why Rabbi Akiva kept all the other 39 behind, erroneously, as it turned out. Gamliel gave him Musar for that, but that was his Havamina. He said, what difference does it make? We don't need real witnesses. It's all just to activate Beis Din, even if they're fake witnesses, that's good enough. Okay? So, Rabbi Yeshua still wasn't Sufridin. He wasn't happy. Can't Rabbi Dosa ben Orkanos? I asked him, do I have to go to Rabbi Gamliel? Rabbi Dosa ben Orkanos says, if we come to question the court of Gamliel, maybe we have to check out every court from the days of Moshe till now. Maybe one of them made a mistake. So it's how can you trust the whole luach we have? Maybe the whole luach we have is incorrect, because maybe some Beis Din along the line made a mistake in making Kiddush HaChodesh, right? So it must be that even if Beis Din makes a mistake, it's still a valid Kiddush HaChodesh, right? Shemot says, Vayal Moshe v'Aaron v'Nadav. This is the source for making what they did. Shemot Vayal Moshe v'Aaron Nadav v'Avihu v'Shimon Ziknei Yisrael. Moshe and Aaron, the 70 elders of Israel, went up. Why the name of Cain is not mentioned? Every group of 3. Okay, even not 70. A group of 3 became a base in Am Yisrael. Haranka base Dino Shal Moshe, like Moshe's basin. So the bottom line is we have to trust the basin. You know, that's what the famous thing. Even I feel mean how small should mean, but I mean should small, right? Even if the basin tells you the wrong thing, still we have to listen to them, right? That's the way it is. You know, I hate to bring examples from sports again, but I understand the Chas v'Shalom. I'm not ma'ayin in these things, but that the Jets got into some playoff based on some mistaken call by, or something like that, some mistaken call by a referee about a touchdown or something like that. So Lamaisa, they made a mistake, right? And the replay shows the guy was wrong. But that's the way, you know, that's the way it is, right? You have to follow the officials. So the same thing here, the same Lavdil. The same thing here, you have to follow them, whether they're right or whether they're wrong. That's the bottom line.
The referees establish what is right.
Right, the referees establish what's right. Exactly, that's the point. Even if it's factually in error. Okay.
Right.
Well, okay, so here it says, not al maklu moisav, he took his rod, he took his money, biyodo, for halach liyavni, went to Yavni, he took Gamliel, biyom shchal yom kurim liyos b'cheshbon, the day which Yom Kippur came according to Ches Cheshbon. Omar Gamliel v'nashka Rosh Gamliel stood up, kissed him on his head, v'amar lo, he said to him, Bo b'sholem Rabbi v'talmidi, come in peace, my Rebbe and my student. Rabbi and my Rebbe, in that you're much smarter than me, v'talmidi, my student, shekibalto alechas dvara, you accepted my decree. Ksiv it says, Hashem Asher Shosas Moshe, Hashem who made Moshe v'es Aaron, v'asher Allah who took Am Yisrael out of Egypt, v'yishlach, and he sent as Yerubal, that's Gidon, v'es Bidon, Yerubal is Gidon, Yerubal is Gidon, right? Bidon is Shimshon, v'es Yiftach, v'es Shmuel. Yerubal Gidon, Bidon Shimshon. Okay, Yerubal, where it says, Yerubal is Gidon and Bidon is Shimshon. Yiftach is Yiftach HaGiladi, right? Hekish Shlosha Kalim, these are 3 lightweights. Where the Yerushalmi not to have said that we couldn't say that, right? But Yiftach, Gidon, and Shimshon were 3 lightweights. Shlosha Kali Olam, the lightweights, right? Shlosha Birei Olam, they're mentioned in the same breath as Moshe, Aaron, and Shmuel, the 3 mighty of the world. What does this teach us? The basin of Gidon, Yiftach, and Shimshon, Shkulim is corresponds connected Moshe, Aaron, and Shmuel. You gotta listen. That's the way it is. Chas v'Shalom, not a basin of somebody like Emmanuel Rackman, but if you have a basin of people who are Erlich and L'Shem Shamayim and no halacha, even if they're lightweights compared to previous generations, so that's sufficient. Okay? So v'lo shesamach hagdolim mikana v'aktanim bets, not only that, but what a praise. The gdolim are the bookends, and the ktanim are mentioned in the middle of this pasuk. It's a little bit of a shvach, a little bit of a praise to the lightweights that they're mentioned in between, sandwiched among the gdolim. Amar Gamliel v'nashka Rosho. Gamliel stood up and kissed him and said, Gamliel said, Bo b'shalom Rabbi v'talmidi, Rabbi b'chochma, my Rebbe in wisdom, v'talmidi b'yiraschet, here it says, my student, not, and that you listen to me, but that you're afraid of sin, meaning the sin of going against the Nasi. Same idea. Rabbi b'chochma, my Rebbe in wisdom, v'talmidi, and my student elsewise, shekom ashrani, goes there love, anything I decree upon you, mekayim, you fulfill. Ksiv it says, alufeinu mesubolim, our generals, meaning our leaders, are born by us. The Goymer, etc. They argue as to interpret this possible. It doesn't say that we bear the generals. Our generals are born down, meaning when the great have tolerance for the small. Continues the apostle in Peretz and no breaches, and Yotzitz and nothing goes out, and Tzvach and no outcries of Rechov Hussein on our streets. Rabbi Shimon Lakish Misari saw the inquiry. Rabbi Shimon Lakish changed around, but it says Alufeinu Musubolim and Ksiv Khan. Alufi Musubolim and Ksiv Khan. It doesn't say our generals bear. Ela Alufeinu Musubolim. We bear the generals. Our generals are born by us. When the commoners bear the great ones, even if they find the great ones faulty, there's no problems. Rabbi Shila the Kfar Tamras Rabbi Shem Rebbe said, He made the moon for the Yom Tovim, and the sun knew its pathways. Mishemesh Yodem Mevo, when the sun knows its pathways, he makes the moon to tell us the Yom Tovim. Now, what that means, the one is about to explain, but let me tell it to you outside first. When would the Eidim come for Kiddush HaChodesh? During the day. But when would Rosh Chodesh actually begin retroactively? From the evening before, right? From Shkias HaChama. So you see that the moon determines the month, but then the month begins from the previous sunset. So it's a partnership between the sun and the moon. Okay? Amrei Berech says, what's the proof of that? It says, Vayisumar Amseis, they traveled from Amseis, B'chodesh HaRishon, when they left Egypt in the first month. Plus it goes on the 15th day of the month, the day after they made the Korban Pesach. So if you would if you wouldn't include the first Shkias HaChama in the month, it would be only the 14th day of the month. There's only 14 Shkias from Rosh Chodesh day till then. But that's a clear evidence that we take into account the night before, and all months start not from when the Eidim come to Beis Din, but retroactively they start from the night before, right? Kad Yitma Belele Moada Arba Samar Tmin Nisba. The more I ask the question, when it's set on the night after the night of Yontif, meaning after the day of the Korban Pesach, only 14 shkios. Have a mishkias chamad meilavon, so it must be from the night before. We already made Mosh Chodesh when we count according to the moon. Rabbi Simon v'hayu ayidei zeh v'ayidei zeh. So Rabbi Simon said that lo and behold, that everything we count is both by the sun and the moon. Right? The moon sets the month, the sun starts the day, the beginning of the date. And Rabbi Yochanan said, we have this in the Pasuk in Bereshis. The night in Judaism, the day always starts from the date, I should say, always starts the night before. Shimon Lakish, Amar HaChodesh, it says the month, the entire day has to be from the new month. That means the night before. You can find to say, or you find yourself saying, Madam Rabbi Yochanan pasuk Rabbi Yochanan cited requires Rabbi Shimon Lakish's pasuk. Madam Rabbi Shimon Lakish that Rabbi Shimon Lakish said Tzricha Rabbi Yochanan is required by Rabbi Yochanan. Ilu Rabbi Yochanan lo Amar Rabbi Shimon Lakish. You would just learn Prat Amay Boker Yom Echad and not HaChodesh, right? Ravina Mamra would say Lo Amar El Afilu Kulo Min HaChodesh. We would say that I forgot what this means. 1 second. Again, let's see entire. Ilu Amar Rabbi Yochanan would just have a Boker Yom Echad Lo Amar Shimon Lakish and not have Shimon Lakish who said you need the entire day to be from the new month. However, Lo Amar El Afilu Kulo Min HaChodesh, I would have said that he didn't mean that. I don't know what he means.
Maybe you would think that the new month would start the next night, not the previous night.
What?
Is that possible? That you would go to the next night and start the month at sunset instead of from the previous day?
You start the new month from the next sunset?
Yeah.
Maybe. See, the Pnei Moshe, I tried to avoid this. Pnei Moshe brings in the whole episode of the whole issue of the international dateline explaining this Gemara, but I'm trying to avoid desperately doing that. If you look at the Ritbaz here, he brings down here which is about the international dateline. The Balamor knew about America because he speaks about the lower hemisphere where where obviously America was present, but my problem is I want to try and avoid explaining the Gemara based on that. Let's try one more time. So again, it says Ilu Amar Rabbi Yochanan Lo Amar Shimon Lakish. We'll just have Vayer Vayivoker Yom Echad, and now Shimon Lakish who says that it has to all be from the new month, the entire first day. Lo Amar Havina Amri would say Lo Amar El Hafilu Kulo Min HaChodesh. We would say that you do not, I guess we'll say like you, Dr. Spinell. I think that's what the Korban is trying to say. That they would say, I wouldn't say that has to be from the new month. I would say that would be from the old month. I would say that the month that, okay, if the Eina came on this date, so this date will be from the old month. I can't split a date in two, true, but I'll say it's from the old month. I won't make it necessarily from the new month. So therefore, what Shimon Lakish says is that to tell you, if Eidim come on a month, and that's Mina Chodesh, so it has to be, if the Eidim come on a certain day, and that day they come to be testified they saw the new moon, so that all becomes the new month. It no longer remains the old month. In other words, according to Rabbi Yochanan, yes, I wouldn't break up a day, but I could have made it always part of the old month. I won't break it up, but I'll put it in the old part of the day. So Shimon says, if they come today, you have to make it the new month, and you make the entire day the new month from the day before. Oh, Shimon Lakish, we would just say Rish Lakish is pasuk of O Chodesh, Chodesh. Loam Rabbi Yochanan, not it's Rabbi Yochanan. I mean, Loam Eliyim. I would have said, okay, whenever the Eidim come, meaning during the day, so the entire day has to be from the new month. But but I'll divide up at Amud HaShachar. I'll say from Amud HaShachar is the new month, and from Tzeis Kol Chaim to Amud HaShachar, the evening before, it's on the old month. So that's when you Rabbi Yochanan say you can't split up a day in the middle. It's Erev Avokir, right? That they both have to go together. So I need both Rabbi Yochanan's drasha and Lahidam Rabbi Shimon Lakish. I need Rabbi Shimon Lakish's drasha as well. Okay, Ajla Parak Mekir, new parak. Ru based in V'chol Yisrael. Let's say everybody saw the new moon. Nechru Eidim, the witnesses were cross-examined. V'lo Yispiku Lomar Mekudesh, but they weren't able to say to consecrate the new moon. Ad Shechashech until darkness fell. I raised them Ubar. Too bad. Even though they all saw the new month, they didn't get around to it. That's tough. Ru Basin, what if only Basin saw the new month? Yamdu Shmayin, so two of them should arise by Idul name and testify in front of the court. The Yom Mekudesh, and the rest of the court should say Mekudesh. Ru Shlosh Ben Basin, where three people saw and they are the Basin. So if two people get up, there won't be any Basin left. Yamdu Shmayin, so two of them should get up. Yoshim Chavrei Meitzal Yachid, they should take some of their friends to put by the individual remains to make a basin of three. But name they should testify in front of him. Those three, V'yomer, they should say Mekudesh. Sheina Yochid Nemana De'atzmo, so solitary individual dying does not suffice. Literally means it's not trustworthy, but here means it doesn't suffice to make Kiddush HaChodesh.
There's another, so here also it's present in the Shabbat Yotos. They say two friends. It doesn't say Smuchim. Yeah, could be, I don't know. Alright, Kine Masnisa. This is the way to read our Mishnah. O Basin, O Kol Yisrael. It means either Basin or all of Ami, or all of Am Yisrael. Either of those should not require Eidos, so we still require Eidos, so we have to go through the call process. Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Amishem, Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Zira, Rabbi Amishem, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said, Ma'amamin ala nira lo abro. This is an interesting Gemara we're about to have. You know, the month was seen. They saw the new moon on the 30th day. So they come to Basin. Somebody says, no, he didn't see it. He didn't really mean to see it. It wasn't seen. Bekitz so they push him off to make a leap month. They can do that intentionally. They can intentionally subvert the Eidos to push it off. Ma'amim means to when in doubt, mumble. It means to delay tag things by doing or being unclear about it in order to make it a leap month. However, you do not persuade Adam, Uncle, you really did see it, in order to make it a 30-day, in order to make Rosh Hashanah on the 30th day, even though the moon wasn't seen. In other words, you can delay, but you can't what's the word? Could accelerate, right? Right, Baruch B'Shem Rishon ben Levi said the exact opposite. We can pretend we saw it, or persuade Adam that they saw it, even though it's a lie, because, again, we don't need real Adam. Just need Adam, even if they're fakers, even if they're idiots, right? They're persuaded to testify, even though they actually see. That we can do. But not the opposite. If it was already seen, you cannot. Rule Basin sees if a on all of the Jews, Necro and the Adam are cross-examined. Excuse me, I speak along on Mekudesh, and we're not able to consecrate the moon, until it got dark. Hareza, here it should be Mu'ubar. It's a mistake, it's a leap month. Now, it says, it sounds like the only reason why you can't leap month is because the Taka became dark.
What if it didn't become dark, but Basin wants to delay it? So the Mishnah does not provide for that capacity. Lo Adamra is not Haloi Lo Chashech. Hello, Adamra teaches us Ema Amin Al Anir Lo Abro. You cannot put into effect delay tactics in order to make a month which should be a proper 30-day Rosh Hashanah, 30th day and the 31st day instead. That's what Mishnah charges are Bizir. Now we have Mishnah charges or price of charges are Biba. What argues Rabbi Ba? It says Yochim Tzarich Shnei Yomim. Let's say you needed 2 days, right? Your calendar's off by 2 days. So can you add 2 days to a month? No, of course not, right? You can only add 1 day to a month, not 2 days. So Yochim Tzarich Shnei Yomim Neislo Shnei Yomim Tam Lomar Oso Ein Hal Yom Echad Bilvad. You only get 1 day. Now Adam Marad, this teaches us that the word "ein" is incorrect. That ma'amimin, it should be al hanire labro. It says you can get 1 day, right? Okay, I changed the gears so dramatically. Both the Nir and Gil and Ephraim do. Say hadamra ma'amimin al hanire labro. That the Torah, this Brisa tells us you could take 1 day. What does it mean you could take 1 day? It means even if they saw it, you can push them off and delay them till you get an extra day. Okay? Masisa pli Rabbi, the following Brisa also is Rabbi. Just like you can make a leap year because you have to. So too you can make the month earlier when you have to. Yikachus Chodesh means to make it earlier, right on the 30th day as opposed to the 31st day, even though the moon was not seen. No, you have to see the moon. Hadamras teach us, when you didn't see it, you can't convince Adam to come to have you Mekadosh it. Masisa pliga Rabbi Bar, Mishnah argues Rabbi, this following Mishnah, Bryce argues Rabbi Bar. What if you didn't see the moon for 2 whole days? Kachi kachus chodesh. Can you still be mekadosh the moon? It should be la'achar shnei yomim, 2 days later, meaning on the 32nd day, right? Which is unheard of course. Doesn't work, right? Talmud lomar no. So that's why it says osam mikro. It's osam should be osam mikroi kodesh. First of all, I know it says that time. It should be osam mikroi kodesh of the Elohim moadai. Osam mikroi kodesh Elohim moadai. The word moadai is missing as well. Meaning, Ein Elam Moadai. You can't. These are not my days. This is not my holidays. So what's my holidays was only. I didn't provide for an extension of 2 days. Right? There are no 31 days in Jewish months. So even though you didn't see the moon for 2 whole days, you still can't. There's no such thing as making a 31-day month and then Rosh Chodesh. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. Right? Mibnei Shalom Nirasa. Now this is clearly. Why was that? What's the Brisa saying? What was the Havamina to extend it? Because you didn't see it, right? What happens if you did see it? Hoyim Nirasa, lo. If you did see the moon, you couldn't extend the previous month. Adam Raz, this teaches us, Ein Ma'amamin, again a mistake here, Ein Ma'amin ala Nira la'abro. If you actually saw it, you wouldn't have had a Havamina to push it off for 2 days, only because you didn't see it for 2 days. So this teaches us that if you did see the moon, you can't push it off. Have a boy Meimar v'lo pligan. Now the truth is they came to the conclusion that there was no machlokas. We fooled you all along. Truth is we can lie in both directions. We can mess up the witnesses and push it off, and mess up the witnesses and make them go early. Just depends on the circumstances. They're not arguing. That which Rabbi Zira said that you cannot bring the witnesses to testify even though there was no moon. That's b'shar kol chodashim, by other months. By other months, because generally speaking, we don't have enough long months, so we never make months early, right? We just make them late. Madam Rabbi, that which Rabbi said the opposite, that we make early months, right? Is by Nisan v'Tishrei, is on Nisan Tishrei, because we have vested interest that we'll see immediately. They never ever wanted Nisan or Tishrei to be after a 30-day month. In other words, they didn't want Adar. We never have Adar with 30 days, and we never have Elul with 30 days. Adar and Elul are always 29 days, right? Because otherwise it will wreak havoc with the people in Golus. Because they'd have a problem with Yom Kippur, right? Right? Is that clear? if they don't know that every year Elul is 29 days,
Right.
then they're going to have to fast Yom Kippur. So therefore, the only time, so that which we said that we sometimes get aim to come, even though it's a lie, is for the greater good of Klal Yisrael by Elul and Adar, which precede Nisan and Tishrei. Okay, Rabbi Omer Nisan lo nisaber miyomav. Nisan never came out on the 31st day. Nisan's always on the 30th day. So didn't we learn if the new month comes out at its proper time? Says more imba, but loba. Says if it happens, but it never happened. In other words, the Mishnah there talks about what happens if Nisan is late, but it never happened that Nisan was late. But then again, Rav Amar Tishrei lo nisar b'miyamav. Tishrei was never a leap month. V'atin an imaya chodesh mubar, if the month was a leap month, Elul imaya, if it was, but lo hayah, it never was. Okay. Kshakichos al Shana beusha b'yom harishon. What about this price? It says when they were Mekadesh Rosh HaShanah and Usha, but Yom Rishon, the first day of Rabbi Shimon Rosh Rabbi Yochanan and Broka. Rabbi Shimon saw Rabbi Yochanan and Broka went to daven for the Yom on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, and Oyman he did Kedivrei Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, who says Malchus in Atok Kadosh. We don't. We say Malchus in Musaf Shmoneh Esrei in Rosh Hashanah in Kedusha Sayoim, right? In Atov V'Chartonim Mikol Amim. But he said it in Atok Kadosh, right? So he did the first day, and Reb Shimon Gamliel did not like this. He said, "Lo, you know, you can't be Yavne. We didn't do any Yavne." Yom Hashanah, the second day of Rabbi Chanina Benosh Rabbi Yosef Chanina Benosh Rabbi Yosef was the Chazan. Varaktiv Akiva, he did like Rabbi Akiva, which is like we do. He said Malchus in Tzav V'Chartonu. Reb Shimon Gamliel said, "Oh, Kana Yinu Nogim Yavne." That was a minhag in Yavne. So it says the Gemara, so we see there must have been a leap year, right? Because they made 2 days Rosh Hashanah. And it wasn't like our 2 days, Aleph and Beis. Then it was Lamed and Aleph, right? So we see there they had a leap year, leap month in Elul, right? So it says the Gemara, no. Rabbi Zeir Shem Rachisa said, also Shana Niskalkula. That year they had some confusion. I forget what exactly the confusion was, but in any event, they made a mistake. Last Korban says they thought the 29th day was the 30th day, but really, Lamaisa, even that year, Elul was not a leap month. They made a mistake in their calendar, but Elul didn't come out to be a leap month even that year.
So historically, when did Chazal institute second day Rosh Hashanah?
I'm very late. I don't remember. Time of the Gemara, I think. I think we'll come across it, but I don't remember.
Well, I know that historically they say somewhere in the 900s. As late as that.
Is that late? I thought it was something. It's going. Yeah, it is amazing. So Ma'arisha Ma'abashay, or an alternate interpretation, Ma'arisha Ma'abashay doesn't mean in the same year. On the first day of Rosh Hashanah, second day of Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Abishem Rav said, Shana Rishon V'Shoshe was 1 year and then another year. It says, no, it can't be. But Tani B'Yom Rishon V'Shoshe, it says the first day and the second day. So it must be like the first answer, which means that there was a year in which they made a mistake in the calendar, but Einach Nami Elul was never a leap month, and we'll stop here for the season.